In 1519, 5 ships departed from Spain under the command of Ferdinand Magellan. Their mission sounded almost absurd: sail west across unknown oceans, find a new route to the Spice Islands, and prove the world could be circled by sea. At the time, much of the Earth still felt mysterious. Maps dissolved into speculation. Storms swallowed fleets. Entire oceans remained psychologically larger than continents. The expedition carried around 270 men. Most would never return. Magellan himself would die before the voyage ended, yet history still remembers the mission as one of humanity's greatest achievements. And maybe that's because, deep down, human beings still admire people willing to give themselves to something greater than personal survival. Which feels strange in the modern world, because modern life increasingly teaches the opposite philosophy. Protect yourself, preserve yourself, stay comfortable, avoid risk, avoid sacrifice, avoid uncertainty. Modern civilization has become astonishingly effective at reducing discomfort. Food arrives instantly. Entertainment never stops. Climate bends at the touch of a thermostat. Entire careers now exist inside glowing rectangles. And yet, despite all this comfort, something feels deeply wrong. People are anxious, exhausted, lonely, spiritually restless. The modern world solved many physical problems, but it quietly created a psychological crisis, because human beings were never designed to live entirely for comfort. Somewhere along the way, modern society began confusing comfort with meaning, but they are not the same thing. Comfort feels good temporarily. Meaning sustains people permanently. And the terrifying thing about meaning is that it almost always demands sacrifice. Marriage demands sacrifice. Children demand sacrifice. Purpose demands sacrifice. Faith demands sacrifice. Love demands sacrifice. Even becoming a mature human being requires suffering. Nobody develops courage without fear. Nobody develops wisdom without failure. Nobody develops patience without frustration. Yet modern culture increasingly treats struggle itself as abnormal. People now organize their entire lives around minimizing discomfort. Difficult conversations get postponed, commitment gets delayed, responsibilities get avoided, relationships become disposable. An entire generation has been raised inside a culture obsessed with emotional self-protection, and nowhere is this more obvious than online. Social media transformed human comparison into a global sport. People no longer compare themselves to neighbors, they compare themselves to millions of carefully edited lives. Someone is richer, more attractive, more successful, more disciplined, more fulfilled, and slowly, modern people become psychologically trapped inside a permanent state of inadequacy. Because modern culture keeps whispering the same promise: optimize yourself enough, and eventually you will achieve the perfect life, perfect body, perfect income, perfect relationship, perfect happiness, perfect peace. But perfection is a hallucination. Nobody arrives. All great things cost something. Deep down, people know comfort alone is not enough. That's why so many successful people still feel empty, because achievement cannot satisfy the human soul indefinitely. Human beings need something deeper than comfort. They need transcendence. They need meaning beyond consumption, purpose beyond self-interest, a reason to suffer voluntarily. And this is where explorers like Magellan become symbolically powerful, because the voyage itself represented something modern people are slowly losing: a willingness to step into uncertainty for the sake of something greater than immediate comfort. Imagine standing on the shore in 1519. No satellites, no accurate maps, no guarantee of survival. Only ocean, endless ocean, and still they sailed. not because safety was guaranteed, but because the mission mattered more than safety. Modern culture struggles to understand this mentality, because modern life increasingly treats self-preservation as the highest moral value. Protect your peace, protect your energy, protect your comfort, protect your personal happiness. And while some of this language contains wisdom, it also carries danger, because eventually, people begin worshiping safety itself. And once safety becomes sacred, everything difficult starts feeling wrong. Sacrifice feels unfair. Commitment feels restrictive. Responsibility feels oppressive. Even love begins to feel threatening, because real love always requires vulnerability. To love deeply is to risk pain deeply. To commit yourself fully to another person means surrendering part of your control. Modern culture hates surrender. It prefers negotiation, options, exit routes, emotional insurance policies. But meaningful lives are rarely built through endless self-protection. They are built through costly devotion. This is why people still admire explorers, missionaries, parents, soldiers, builders, caregivers, teachers, people who quietly spend themselves for others. Because somewhere beneath modern cynicism, human beings still recognize courage when they see it. And courage has never meant the absence of fear. Courage means moving forward despite uncertainty. Magellan understood this. He sailed into oceans that could easily kill him. Storms, disease, starvation, mutiny, war. The expedition became catastrophic. Ships were lost, men died, the crew suffered endlessly, and eventually Magellan himself was killed before the voyage was completed. Which creates a fascinating philosophical question. If the leader dies, if most of the crew never returns, if the mission collapses into suffering, was the voyage still meaningful? Modern culture increasingly answers no, because modern society tends to define success in purely personal terms. Did I win? Did I profit? Did I survive? Did I become successful? But historically, human beings often understood meaning differently. Meaning was connected to service, legacy, mission, sacrifice. A person could lose comfort, lose recognition, even lose life itself, and still participate in something eternally significant. This is one reason why Christianity remains so radically countercultural, because Christianity does not promise comfortable self-optimization. At the center of Christianity is not personal branding. It is a cross. And the cross represents something modern culture desperately tries to avoid: self-denial, sacrifice, surrender. The Christian vision reverses modern assumptions about success. Modern culture says, protect your life at all costs. Christ says, whoever loses his life will find it. Modern culture says, build your kingdom. Christianity says, seek first the kingdom of God. Modern culture says, avoid suffering. Christianity says, suffering can transform you. These are fundamentally different visions of reality. One places the self at the center, the other dethrones it. And perhaps this explains why modern people often feel trapped despite unprecedented comfort. Because comfort alone cannot satisfy the deepest parts of the human soul. Human beings were not created merely to consume experiences until death arrives. They were created for meaning, and meaning usually demands sacrifice. That sacrifice may not look dramatic. It may not involve oceans or ships. Sometimes it looks like raising children faithfully, loving a difficult spouse, serving quietly for decades, caring for aging parents, remaining loyal when leaving would be easier, forgiving someone who wounded you, building something slowly without recognition. Modern culture rarely celebrates these forms of courage, but history suggests they may be among the most meaningful acts human beings perform. Because a meaningful life is not built through endless self-preservation. It is built through self-giving. And eventually, every human being must answer a terrifying question. What is my life actually for? Comfort, consumption, distraction, personal advancement, or something greater? Magellan never completed the voyage himself. He died before seeing the mission fulfilled. And yet history still remembers the expedition because the journey represented something larger than individual survival. And perhaps that is the deepest symbolic truth hidden inside these old stories of dangerous seas and broken ships. Human beings become most alive when they stop worshiping safety above all else. Not reckless suffering, not meaningless pain, but purposeful sacrifice, a life aimed at something beyond the self. Because eventually, everyone loses comfort anyway. Time takes it, age takes it, death takes it. The question is not whether life will cost you something. The question is whether the cost was spent on something meaningful. And maybe that is why stories of storms, oceans, and impossible voyages still move us centuries later. Because deep down, human beings know they were never meant merely to survive. They were meant to sail towards something greater than themselves, even if safe return is doubtful. History leaves clues, faith offers answers, and every story leaves us with a choice. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe and join us for the next one. This is Safe Return Doubtful.
History leaves clues in the dust on the shelf, old names in the stone, old wounds in myself. Faith offers answers when the night pulls tight. Every story leaves us with a choice by light. The map ran out, but the sea went on. Fear said return, purpose said sail on. Safe return doubtful, safe return doubtful. Don't mistake comfort for meaning. Safe return doubtful, safe return doubtful. The tide keeps calling, and we go. A hand on the rail, a prayer in the teeth, salt on the tongue, and truth underneath. If you need a sign, look at the wake. Some doors stay open for the brave awake. The map ran out, but the sea went on. Fear said return, purpose said sail on. Safe return doubtful, safe return doubtful. Don't mistake comfort for meaning. Safe return doubtful, safe return doubtful. The tide keeps calling, and we go. If this is the road, then let it be road. If this is the way, then let it be gold. No promise of shore, no promise of rest, just the next true step and the fire in the chest. Safe return doubtful, safe return doubtful. Don't mistake comfort for meaning. Safe return doubtful. effort for meaning. Safe return, doubtful. Safe return, doubtful.